Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Infinity Bootcamp, the virtual Engage event, day number 2 of our recruiting and retention bonanza. Very happy to have you all with us here today. My name is Craig Hart, and joining me today is Mark Ray. Now, before we get started with our guest speaker, just some housekeeping with you all. Just for those of you joining us for the first time today, I am with the Marketing Operations Department of Infinity Workforce Solutions, and my background is in distance learning and e-learning systems. And Mark, on the other hand, is one of y'all. He is an industry executive with over 35 years of experience in the trucking industry. 30 of those years were with Frozen Food Express, a large frozen food hauler based out of Dallas, Texas. Some of you have probably seen their trucks on the road, and he has retired from that aspect of it and now works as an advisor with a number of companies and governmental organizations, even educational organizations dealing with industry issues. And he's a longtime friend here of Infinity Workforce Solutions. We've known you for, gosh, a better part of 20 years now. So Mark, it's always a pleasure to have you with us, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. And today we really have a great speaker. Mr. George Gerth from the beautiful city of Indianapolis is going to help us with the field, the application of how to confront this issue of driver shortage. And it's a multi-dimensional issue. It covers everything in the world. And he has been very successful with that with his tanker fleet. So it's a big issue. It's number one issue, driver shortage, driver shortage, driver shortage. And George is going to explain and go over, and I hope we get a lot of input from our chat friends on best practices. This works in this area. This has not worked for us in that area. So please light us up on the chat side.
Excellent. Yeah, I see the chat is already up and running. Just as a refresher, yesterday, the first day of boot camp, we had Jeremy Reamer, President and CEO of Driver Reach, with us talking about quite a few subjects. We're going to visit about that in a moment. Today we have George Gerth, who is the VP of Safety and Recruiting with Grammar Logistics out of Indiana. And then tomorrow we have Ellen Voya with the President and CEO of Women in Trucking, who will be joining with us to talk about recruiting messaging and are you leaving eligible talent on the table that you're not taking advantage of because you are not inviting them to participate in your company. And then on Friday, we have Dan Baker, who will be joining us, a man who needs a little introduction. He's going to lift us up and get us going on our way on Friday. So we're very excited to have this docket of speakers. Now, for those that are joining us for the first time today, our format, we've set aside this section at the beginning of the event to have an opportunity for us to chat and collaborate with you all. Then we'll bring George on at about 15 after and have him speak for probably right around an hour. We've got a lot of ground to cover with him because he does wear many hats in his organization. And the goal there is to give you some ideas of things that George is using with his program successfully that you can take and make your own. And then once George is done, we're going to open up the floor to questions from chat, though we do take questions throughout the event as well. So if there's something that's really important and pertinent that comes up, just like folks did yesterday, we can ask that of George in the moment as well. And then at the end, we'll have some time to reflect on what we've covered today and set the stage for tomorrow. Now, your workbooks, these should have been sent out with your event reminders. Actually, I know they were sent out with your event reminders. Make sure you break these out for today. There are pages set up for every day of this event, so you can take a long, hard look at your existing program when it comes to recruiting and retention, and then also record ideas, things, takeaways you want to take and make your own. The goal here is if there's something important to you that you want to take advantage of, write it down, because the odds of you being able to remember that off the top of your head sometime next week when you finally have a chance to come up for air after this event is over with and you've been immersed fully back into your world of phone calls and emails and issues and challenges and people knocking on your door, it's not going to happen. So we put that workbook together so that you all could write down what's important to you so that when you get done with this event, you have items from every single day that you can take and apply to your organization to make it even better. So if you do not have that workbook, Lindsay Presley, who is in chat with us today, just let her know you need that and what email she needs to send that to, and she will send that to you. All right, now again, we are also doing our daily code word contest. So we had our first code word yesterday. We will be releasing our second code word at the end of today's presentation. And this is for a car dash cam. It is a front and rear facing dash cam. The reason we thought this would be valuable, one, we know a lot of you live with dash cam footage and you understand the importance of it as it protects your drivers out there in the field because there are crazy drivers surrounding them all day, every day. But it also can be valuable for you all as well in your personal travel that you're doing to and from the office, because that does not make you immune from accidents and bad behavior of other drivers. And having that level of protection of being able to record what's going on around you that you can then share with a police officer or an insurance company, that just like it protects your drivers, it protects you. So it's kind of cool little thing. So you do need to submit all 4 code words of the day by Friday to be eligible for the drawing. Different code word every day. And then if you've submitted all 4 words, you will be entered into the pool of people that we will draw the winner from. Awesome. All right, now our special offer reminders. We do have special offers for some of the days that we hold this event. And yesterday's offer was a 30-day free trial to the Infinit-I Workforce platform. This is ideal for those of you who are not familiar with our system and want to learn more about being able to assign out training for orientation, corrective action, and some of these other things we're actually going to be talking with George, because training does play an element in your recruiting and retention process and platforms. So we'll dig more into that shortly, but if that's something that you would like to take advantage of, you can also shoot Lindsay a quick email at the email address on the screen below. And she can get you those details so that you can take advantage of that platform risk and cost free for 30 days. All right here. Now, just something that Mark reminded, we do want people to interact with us. I see our chat window is already filling up with folks saying hello and hi, and looks from all over this country, which is fantastic, and even into Canada as well. Welcome, everyone. For those of you who have not fired up your chat window, we recommend that you do so now. You click on the More button on your action menu, then click on Chat. And then there is a section that says To once you open that window, and recommend you change that to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your questions and comments that you have. So if you have not done that, please do that right now and fire off a message there in chat. Let us know where you are joining us from today. And we love to see that, love to hear it. So got people coming from all over. I think it's right now. Folks on the East Coast, the West Coast, and North and South. So that's awesome. Okay, let's take a look back at what we covered yesterday. Jeremy came on board to talk with us about technology that is available for trucking companies to use to take the air out of the process when they're bringing individuals on board. And the reason for that is speed to hire. The more air you can take out of your communications with a new recruit, the more likely they will be to complete the process. And so technology was key, and he covered a lot of different elements yesterday. So candidate management systems, self-sign-up, self-scheduling, chat bots, eDocs, e-signature functionality. So for those of you who were not with us yesterday, we will have a replay available. I'm going to show you the replay link here in just a moment after this slide, so you can go back and watch that. For those of you that were with us here yesterday and wanted to be able to share this information with other members of your team, he covered a lot of ground on a lot of different functional pieces that you all can incorporate into your system. And there are different vendors out there that are able to provide those, Driver Reach being one of them, but there are others as well. The goal there was just to make sure that if this is something that you're embracing, and you should be, because the folks that you are recruiting against are, that you keep in mind what pieces are available to take advantage of. But also some stuff that came up yesterday was Mark, I know that you and Jeremy talked about respecting the candidate. And that was an umbrella that covered a couple different topics. It was, respecting the effort and time that they're making in communicating with you and their interest, and you reflecting that back to them by making sure that when you respond, that you're responding promptly. I know when you were with FFE, you were sharing with me offline earlier today, the number one reason of why people came on board.
Absolutely. It's because we were the first ones to respond. And, you talk about that respect. I guess the counter that is disrespect. And the research is very overwhelming that a contributor to turnover or driver turnover is disrespect. And the ease of application that we talked about yesterday, the failure to communicate and not ignore the applicant sets the tone for that respect tendency that your company is going to project to the applicant. So if you haven't looked at your ease of application and how easy is it to do, how can I get it in there, am I responding, I think you need to go back and look at your system to see what's going on there, because that could be a indicator of disrespect. Another couple of comments I had from yesterday, I learned a few new things. CRM, normally you think customer relations, but Jeremy made a really great point about candidate relationship management and how you need to incorporate that system. Talked about the ATSs. He talked about the self-scheduling, the lead to hire time. So it was a very, very productive discussion. He brought up a lot of best practices that are out there. I noticed on the chat, a couple of people asked, is anybody still using paper apps? And everything went quiet for a little bit. So
I saw that. I saw that. Nobody was going to admit on chat that they use paper apps. I understand that. That was a setup question for some folks. But if you're sending someone a PDF, that is a paper app. That is what you are having them do. So if you don't have some kind of e-application process that they can fill out on their smartphone or their tablet, um, we recommend looking into that, because that's going to speed up the process of you getting all the pertinent information that you need from that driver to get that process started, and also allow you to have that auto response to let them know that you got it and you're looking and you want to talk with them. A couple of things he brought out: testing the recruiting message. I mean, recruiting can be expensive. Can be, for some of the folks on this call, a very large dollar amount every year that's being invested in this process. Test your recruiting message. If you're running more than one, is one getting more traction than the other? Is one actually causing your click-through rates to go down? Is it not a message that's resonating with the people that you're trying to bring on board? Make sure that you're testing these things. I know Jeremy talked about a good time frame is at least weekly to see what kind of traction your messaging is getting, and do you need to tweak it so that you can and get the most out of your recruiting spend. Another thing he brought up that I was not even aware of was this data privacy issue. Do you have control over this data, or are you currently partnered with someone that is repackaging every lead that your recruiting ads are attracting and selling it to somebody else? So that's something that you're going to want to evaluate if you have these systems in place, because that's someone piggybacking off of your hard work and your message, and that's just not right. So make sure that you've got that under control, and that is not occurring with any group that you're in partnership with. So that's tremendous, because you should be keeping your people. This should not be filling up somebody else's pipeline outside of your organization. So let's see here. There's the replay link, and I know Lindsay was probably going to put this into the chat as well, so people can click on that and save that. We will have replays for all 4 days available. So we typically have the replay up the afternoon of the same day that we have the day presentation. So it's not a long lag time there, but for those folks that want to be able to share that with other people on your team, or there was some particular piece that you wanted to watch again so you can make sure you take good notes, please do. Also, as a reminder, Jeremy over there at Driver Reach is a great resource for information about the trucking industry in general. but has a very good head for the technology side of things. So I recommend checking out their blogs, checking out their podcast, because he covers a lot of ground from a lot of different areas, because that's his background. He came from the trucking industry. So excellent. All right.
Yeah, Craig, I would also ask the listening audience to on chat put your takeaways down. Tell us what you got out of yesterday's presentation to share with everybody else.
Yeah,
So
what's the big one or two things that you're circling on your
takeaways.
page right now that you know your organization needs to get a handle on? All right, then looking ahead to tomorrow, we have Ellen Voya, President and CEO with Women in Trucking, who will be joining us. I don't know how many people on the call are familiar with Women in Trucking, but they are an association advocacy group that works to help increase the number of women in the transportation industry in all the different levels and fields of it, because there are a ton of women out there that are interested in working in this field, but oftentimes do not feel like they are welcome or included. And she's got some great visuals, some actual ads people are running that she's going to put in front of you guys, so you can see whether or not they're appealing to the target audience, and maybe even get you rethinking your own recruiting ads and so forth. So we're super excited to have her with us today. Mark and I have seen her presentation. She's going to cover a lot of ground tomorrow, and I think it's going to be very, very valuable for those of you in attendance. All right. But enough about yesterday and tomorrow. We're on today. Today, we have George Gerth, who is VP of Safety and Recruiting with Grammer Logistics. Um, I'll bring him on here in just a second. We can go ahead and turn on his microphone and his camera. His title really, though, undersells all the hats he wears at his organization. He is also responsible for part of the retention program at their organization, keeping their drivers engaged and plugged in with their organization year over year. And he's very, very successful at doing it. And we're going to have him share these things that he's been doing with Grammer that have been working, so that you guys can, take them and make them your own at your own organization. So, George, are you there?
I am, but I need one of you guys to unlock my video, please.
Okay. Can someone please help get George's beautiful face on the screen with us? While we're doing that, though, there he is. Excellent. All right, George. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Grammer Logistics.
Well, thanks for having me on. Grammer Logistics, of course, we're a bulk chemical tank hauler. We're right around 450 trucks based out of Indiana. We have 21 locations between our terminals and our transload facilities across the pretty much the eastern half of the United States. We're down into Texas and Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas, all the way up through the Midwest. A little about me. I've been in the trucking business now, or in the transportation industry, about 40 years. Started out in the Air Force, spent 21 years in the Air Force, started driving trucks nights and weekends, and retired from the Air Force and came out and bought some trucks, and was an owner operator for quite some time, company driver for a while, and I've been off the road now about 8 years. I've been here at Grammer for 6. Prior to that, I was with a big box carrier for a couple of years in their safety department.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Now, I know VP of Safety and recruiting is your title, but I know that doesn't encapsulate everything that you do. So at Grammer, I mean, what is it that you have a handle on there?
Well, I have a handle here. Pretty much we wear all kinds of hats.
Yeah.
It's from starting recruiting process with onboarding drivers to qualifications to getting the drivers in for orientation. I actually teach a lot of the orientation myself, and then maintaining our drivers once they get on board. And we start our drivers out on Infinit-I Workforce. I've been using Infinit-I Workforce now for about 7 years. I used it at the box carrier I was at, and then I introduced it here to Grammer and brought it on board here. So we use it in a bunch of different platforms. I mean, we started in orientation, and we use it throughout for training and monthly training. We do corrective action training with it. So
Right.
And also I'm in a truck every now and then. When the need arises, I'm out on the road.
George, I'm looking at this bullet point that says 21 terminals, and that's got to have its challenges, I would think, relative to consistency and getting the word out and managing this turnover. Tell us how you use the system to connect to 21 different terminals.
Well, Infinity Workforce is a great way for me to reach out to all of our folks, not just the drivers, but management staff, the dispatch staff. And we put the same message out every month, and that's from the CEO down. Everything that I put out to the drivers goes to all of our corporate employees as well. That way, if a driver calls in, has questions about it, dispatch has watched the same information, and it allows me to get the information out there. 2020 was a little bit challenging for us with the COVID, with the pandemic, because I personally get to all 21 terminals on a yearly basis to do in-person safety meetings, which has been a little harder for me to do this year. So the Infinity Workforce has allowed me to get out there a little more than typically I would have.
Now, I know one question that's going to come up, George, is with your driver fleet, what percentage are company drivers and what percentage are owner operators?
We're about a 50-50 mix.
Okay. I will come back to that question in a second. Okay. I realized we were jumping the gun a little bit. We need to talk about recruiting before we get drivers in the door that can put them into orientation. I wanted to kind of dig a little bit into the process that you use when you're recruiting folks, because I know you embrace technology. I know that you use driver reach
Yes.
on the recruiting side of things for management of that process. Are there other technologies that you take advantage of as well on the recruiting side?
Well, we do use driver reach. We were using paper apps up till about 3.5 years ago. And of course, sending out our PDFs and sending out a bunch of stuff for the drivers to sign. And we started with driver reach. And really in today's world, if you don't get to a driver quickly and get that information to them and have them be able to sign and get documents back to you in a quick fashion or manner, someone else will. So really, I mean, as soon as they apply, we're on the phone with them. We're getting back to them. If we can't, we're sending them text messages, which, you know, you have to be really careful when you talk about sending drivers text messages, because I don't want a driver reading a text message going down the road. You know, but that comes back to driver behavior. You know, the driver, you have to hope that the driver has enough sense about them not to be reading these texts going down the road. But you know, we reach out to them with a text, we reach out to them with a phone call, we reach out to them with an email, but we try to get back to them immediately, because they're shopping, they're looking for a place to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anything beyond driver reach that you use in the process at all?
We you know, a lot of it's advertising as well.
Okay.
You know, Jeremy talked a little bit, I think yesterday, about advertising. And on a weekly basis, I'm looking at our advertising marketing and seeing, you know, where are we doing better and what areas are we doing better, or what platform. If we're using one advertising media and it's not working, let's change it up. Let's go to and find what works for you. So.
All right, so that's two speakers in a row now that have said test your marketing, do it weekly, make sure you're seeing what works and what doesn't. So if you have not written down that as a takeaway and you are not doing that as part of your process, I recommend instilling that. So social media, wanted to highlight that because you had told me that that's your primary avenue right now for recruiting leads is social media.
We do a lot on Facebook. You know, we spotlight our drivers on Facebook. We spotlight our corporate staff on Facebook. With social media the way it is today, we've all become high-tech truck drivers now, right? I mean, I started back when you had stopped at a payphone, or when you had them, then we had pagers, and then when the cell phone came about. But now it's all about social media. It's Facebook and LinkedIn and the different platforms that are out there that these drivers are looking at. I stopped at a truck stop the other day to go to the driver area to pick up a couple of magazines to see how other people are advertising. And used to be, when I started in this business, you couldn't hardly find one of the books advertising for jobs, careers. And now there was 2 or 3 months worth sitting back there because drivers are just not picking these books up hardly anymore. It's all about social media, and you've got it right there at your fingertips.
Absolutely. No, the pervasiveness of smartphones is obviously has its challenges in the transportation industry just because of uh, the distractions that it causes and the epidemic of distracted driving that has enabled, but it also the speed with which communication can happen is so much more dramatic. There's no faxing. There's no back and forth mailing of information. I mean, this immediacy is at your fingertips through an app. So
Sure.
um, typically, do you put anything specifically on social media about your jobs? Do you put your job postings like in a post on your Facebook page or through LinkedIn?
We do put some out on LinkedIn, and on our social media page, we will put out that we're hiring in certain areas, and we'll put a map out and kind of dot the map of the different locations, and click here to apply. We embed the URL code there so that once they do click, and for driver reach, the great thing about using them, and I'm sure other medias have the same thing. Um,
Sure.
I can put a URL based on where I'm advertising. So if I put a Craigslist ad out, I can put an individual URL there so I can see, am I getting hits from Craigslist? Am I getting hits from the Facebook page? So it really drills it down to where we're getting the most bang for our buck.
Awesome. Now, one thing that came up, Mark and I were talking about this before the call today, but it came up yesterday with Jeremy and seemed to be a heated topic on the chat as well. Um, what is Grammar's stance on sign-up bonuses?
We don't do a sign-on bonus. A lot of our best referrals come from our drivers. So we do a referral program. We do a referral bonus. So if we can get, our current drivers to bring a driver on board, then we pay that driver for doing that. So we pay out a referral bonus. We've looked at sign-on bonuses, but at this point we just don't do them yet.
Okay. No, it seemed that the general consensus was uh, don't because and we've all heard the horror stories of folks showing up just long enough to qualify for their sign up bonus and then skedaddling with the cash and you're still left high and dry without a driver. So I mean we all know people that have had that happen.
Sure.
And so it's a contentious issue, but I know other groups. Mark and I were talking about that. Their solution is just throw money at the problem, throw more money,
Yeah.
and people will come. So
And what we do in orientation is we have business cards made up with all of our information on it, and with a blank line for the driver to write his name or his truck number on. And they become our recruiters. When they're on the road, if they're talking to a person that's interested in coming to work for Grammar, they give them a business card, say, here's my name, here's my truck number, let them know that I spoke with you, and put me down as a referral.
that's a good idea, actually, because of that, enabling the driver to have some kind of tangible thing that they can provide to somebody else with their own information on it is a great idea. And rather than just saying, "Hey, well, you got somebody, let us know." It's the actual giving them something that they can hand out that's got everything someone needs. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and when that potential driver is coming on board, he said, "Well, I talked to somebody when I was at the truck stop, but I don't remember who it was." And this really makes it easy for us and easy for the individual who wants to come to work for us to remember who that person was.
Okay, got a couple questions already coming in right now. Are you willing to share with us how much of a referral bonus that it actually is for your drivers?
Um, we do. We actually do $1,000 referral bonus,
Okay.
and we break it up. We break it up into a 90-day and a 6 month, 90-day and 180-day.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because I just don't want somebody bringing drivers into us and 3 months later they're gone, or we're not going to pay them as soon as they get out of orientation, because then you got those folks that are coming in and just for the referral and then leaving.
Excellent. Looks like some other folks are chiming in that they've done that business card route that you had done with the pre-filled information in the spot to customize it with their referral program as well. So great minds think alike, folks.
Sure.
Awesome. 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 Now, I know due to the nature of what you guys haul, you have a minimum requirement of years of experience already. Hazmat, they either need to have that certification or be willing to accomplish that in short order. Same thing with the TWIC card. They need to be eligible to receive that and go through the rigmarole successfully to get that. And I know that plays into part of your, though it does narrow down your recruiting pool right off the bat, because there's people that are going to be excluded from that immediately. So that's an additional challenge. Have you found any secrets on how to still, make sure you're getting the bodies in the door with that as a potential roadblock? I guess if someone came to you and was like, I don't have hazmat right now, but I want to get it. I guess how would you handle that?
Well, we do have drivers that come from a van carrier side that want to start specializing and getting into the bulk tank. And one thing that we do require is tanker endorsement, hazmat, and TWIC. So when they call, we don't turn them away. We tell them, we said, here, let's start the process. You'll need to, get a hazmat endorsement and get a TWIC, and we give them the information that they need to get that done. Typically, we will not bring anyone in without a tank endorsement or a hazmat or a TWIC, but we've had quite a few drivers that immediately start the process to go get that done.
Okay, excellent. And is
So,
that
so
something?
you've actually got a transition program, I would assume, and I'm assuming you also have some drivers that maybe haven't participated in hazmat and tanker for a couple of years. You got like a refresher program for them?
We do. Our orientation is actually in-house 2.5 days. And we bring them all here to Columbus, Indiana, to headquarters. We do a very intense 2.5 days. Then when they go back into the field, even if they come from a bulk carrier, they're going to go with a driver trainer.
Gotcha.
So we're going to put them out with a lead driver. It doesn't matter if they were hauling bulk hazmat as of yesterday and hauling our product. We want to make sure that they don't have bad habits. They know the process. In the same way with new drivers coming in, we put them with a lead driver, and if it takes up to 30 days to get that driver qualified and comfortable, then that's what we do.
Now, someone had a question here. Do you all pay for the hazmat test and the fingerprinting?
We do not coming on board, but once a driver is on board with us, yes, we do pay for hazmat fingerprinting and the TWIC. The federal government, of course, says that the TWIC card will now suffice for fingerprinting for your HME hazmat endorsement, but the states aren't ready for this yet. So the states have not adopted this.
Of course not. Of course not.
Right, exactly. So we do still pay for the hazmat fingerprinting and the TWIC once they're on board with us.
Now, someone did have a question about TWIC. Just because they're unfamiliar with TWIC, would you just give us a quick overview of what TWIC is?
So the TWIC is a transportation worker identification credentials, and basically anywhere that you're going into a chemical facility or anywhere around ports, whether it be a seaport or a rail port. A lot of times they will require a TWIC card. If you pull in and you do not have the TWIC credentials, then you have to be escorted onto the property. We have had times when we've been turned away if an individual did not have a TWIC card. And a lot of the military bases will require it as well.
I know that just from my own experience with our clients, it's usually the folks entering the ports or the railheads that have the TWIC card. It's just an additional level of verification of identity and so forth. So,
Yeah.
all right, excellent. Now retention. Now retention, once we got them in the door, they're on board, they're in your truck, they're driving, they're happy. You have a multi-step retention process. First and foremost, what is your retention rate with your team right now?
As of right now, our retention rate is at 78%,
Excellent.
which, it's, I wish it was higher. I'm satisfied with the 78%. Would I like it to be 100%? Sure, I would.
Well, that's
Uh,
what did you have in 2016? You told us.
we had zero turnover in 2016.
So it is
So
doable, everyone. It is doable. So it takes work. We're going to talk about that.
yeah, and I was shocked because I came here early 2015, January of 2015, and when we got through 2016, I was looking back at it the other day, and we had no turnover in 2016 at all. And we've got guys that have been here 30 plus years.
That's incredible. That is incredible. So, and you're doing that with owner operators, half of your fleet being owner operators.
Correct.
Actually, I got a question for you about that once we get to it. But training, actually, we'll talk about it here shortly. So we talked about this a little bit already in terms of orientation, ongoing, custom. This is something that you do use the Infinit-I workforce system for, to make sure that right up front when people are walking in the door, they understand your policies, how you operate, the things that you expect of them, some additional safety training as well. I know some of the safety training for hazmat, though, still has to be done in person, given what that might be. I understand that as well. But the ongoing piece is the piece I'm excited about, because this is something that you drive out to every single terminal, 21 terminals, and your terminal managers own it. And Mark and I were curious about that because we were talking earlier. We didn't. How do you get your terminal managers to buy in to make sure that your people participate?
When it comes to safety, you have to have buy-in from everyone, from starting with the CEO of this company all the way down. And Grammar has had a really, really good safety culture. The drivers buy into it. The terminal managers buy into it. And we have Power BI. So we post every month, or actually we post on a weekly basis, down to the terminal level, who has completed Infinit-I training, who has not completed it. And we pick the phone up and we'll call the terminal managers. When it comes down to it, and we're nearing the end of the month, and I'm looking at who's not completed their training. If the CEO has not completed his, I'll pick the phone up and call him or send him an email. Hey, we're nearing the end of the month. You need to get on it. So, but it, the thing here is all of our terminal managers have bought in, and that shows to your drivers. So when your terminal manager buys in and your senior staff buys in, the drivers are going to buy in with it.
Excellent. And just to clarify something you had mentioned, you mentioned Power BI. For those on the phone, Power BI is a reporting structure built by Microsoft. It's a data aggregator, so you can pull reports of activity and things like that. It stands for Power Business Intelligence. It's something that we incorporate on our end in Infinit-I Workforce to show reporting, but it's incorporated in all sorts of different facets of many different industries. So that may be incorporated into other things that you use as well. It's just a way to dynamically capture information and pull all sorts of data points out of it that you can use to drive your program. Now, everyone gets training in your organization. So the CEO down to the secretary, everybody gets it. What's your philosophy there?
Well, I want everyone here within the office, within our staff, to see what the drivers are seeing. I want them to be knowledgeable of it. I want that when a driver calls in and they may be talking to their dispatcher about what they just watched on Infinit-I, I want the dispatcher to be able to relate to that and be able to speak with them about it. I do a lot of custom content. We use a lot of the Infinit-I Workforce's content that is already there, but I do a lot of custom content based on the bulk tanker, based on our needs, based on our customers.
Now, I think you're underselling that a little bit because when you say custom content, set the stage. What do you mean when you say custom content? What are you doing?
Well, I've actually taken one of my spare bedrooms and turned it into a studio, where I've got a green room there to where I can go in and set up, and I'll do a video, I'll do PowerPoint presentations with it. We actually will do, if we're out at a customer and the customer says, hey, we need all of your drivers coming into our location to see this or view this or watch this before they get here, then we can put that custom content out there, and then we can assign it to those drivers to get done prior to arriving at a customer.
Now, this studio, for lack of a better term, that you've set up. I mean, this is. I want people to understand this because sometimes custom content can be a very intimidating prospect for a lot of the folks that we talk with, because they'll be the first ones to go, I'm not an actor, I don't want to be on camera. But what you've set up was not you didn't break the bank to do this. I mean, you got most of this stuff off of Amazon.
Got it off of Amazon. It was less than $150. It came in with a green screen with the tripods and the piping and the poles to hold it up with. It came in with the tripods with the lamps and the diffusers to put the light where you want it. I go in, I set my laptop up. I actually use Zoom. I'll bring up a Zoom call and I'll record it. And then when I save it, it saves to an MP4. So I save it down to an MP4 video and I send it to Vertical Alliance Infinit-I Workforce, and they add it as my custom content.
So all the stuff that you're using that is preparing this training, Zoom, PowerPoint, we know everybody's got Zoom that's on this call today.
Sure.
Even the free account allows you to record training on it, especially if it's short, which is what we recommend when it comes to custom content. PowerPoint, it's going to come as part of Windows. If you got Microsoft Office, you've got that as part of your system. I mean, so this is not a huge expenditure on the part of the organization. And you're doing this a couple times a month, every month. I mean, that's the goal that you've set for yourself, is a couple times a month.
I am, and I really got some good feedback from the drivers, because for so long we gave them, the content, and Infinit-I Workforce has really great content, but when they see someone they know on the video, they called me and said, man, that was a really good video you did. Let's do some more of that. So now I'm starting to incorporate other people within the organization, and maybe even start spotlighting some drivers to do some of the video footage with me.
I cannot recommend that enough to people on the call with us. I mean, I love Infinit-I Workforce. It's where I've worked and where I've worked for years. We've got a ton of great content, but people don't necessarily get excited by it. People get excited at custom content. People get excited to see people that they know and that they talk to, because that's who they identify with. That's who they work for. That's who they work with, and that's what people show up for every day. So I cannot stress enough on the custom content front of getting that put together, even if it's simple. It doesn't have to be super fancy. We've got people that put custom content up that's shot on their cell phone. I mean, the quality you can get on an iPhone these days with the camera that's integrated into this thing now is tremendous. But people want to hear from you. That's one of those things, I think, that as part of retention, people want to hear from their organization in the training. They don't just want to get training thrown at them that is impersonal. So the fact that you personalized this at a high level, I think, is awesome. And it sounds like you're getting the feedback back already from your folks that they like it. They're responding more positively to it than any other training, and asking you for more of it. I mean, how many times have you had drivers in the years that you've been in this industry come up and go, man, I cannot wait to do more training.
I tell drivers all the time, I said, you guys will sit around and watch YouTube videos all night. I said, so why not pop on, do a couple of assignments that we've assigned out to you. I incentivize our drivers to do the training. And if they do it on a quarterly basis, I put them in for a gift card drawing at each terminal location. So I do incentivize a little bit, but it's when I first started this, I had a little pushback, but now if our content's not out on the first of the month, I have drivers calling, hey, where's my email? I didn't get my email. Where's my training?
George, I've got to assume when you're in the Air Force, you clearly understood there's no such thing as too much training. Is that a fair statement?
That is a very fair statement, yes.
So I got one quick question on the custom content. I know safety awareness, lane changes, night driving, things like that. What about just basic information exchange, like how do I get a vaccination or thing? Could you use your home studio for getting information exchanged in addition to the safety awareness?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if I have a new policy going into effect, I'll do custom content and get up and explain the new policy that's going into effect within the organization. That way it goes out to everyone. And believe it or not, when you put a new policy into effect, even those, because I have about an 80 to 85% completion rate. But if you put a new policy into effect, drivers talk. So one driver is going to be telling another one, hey, you need to pop on there and watch this. We got a new policy going into effect.
And all of them have a different interpretation of that policy, don't they?
That is correct. Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I'm only responsible for what I say, not for what you hear.
Excellent. Now, someone did ask if there are samples of your custom content available. I did not know if Grammar had their own YouTube channel where you guys could see some of your work. If you don't feel like you're obligated to do so. It's always a sticky wicket with the custom content because it is proprietary. It's not something that we've got a ton of it. I mean, we literally have over 10,000 pieces of custom content in our system. I can't share any of it with you because it's all specific to a client, but I did not know if your stuff had been set up to be available and viewable by the public. So
it's not.
Okay.
Pretty much everything I do is proprietary to Grammar. So
Gotcha.
Hey, George, I got one more question. We talked about retention. We're talking about training. Is it your opinion that aggressive training that you're doing impacts driver turnover?
Yeah, I would say yeah. But I think it impacts retention. I don't necessarily know that it would impact my turnover. It's going to impact the retention.
Okay.
It
improves the driver shortage situation.
It does. It does. And it allows us to retain more drivers because drivers want to know what's going on. They want to know what's happening. And especially when you're doing custom content, you're getting the messages out. They feel like they're part of the team. They feel like they're part of the group, and you're sharing that information with them. So I truly believe that it helps our retention.
Now, do you have any kind of, because obviously we're dealing with in any driver population, different levels of tech savviness. For those drivers that may push back, and this is a question that's coming from chat, do you have any accommodation set up for them? Like, so if they have a flip phone, they don't have a smartphone, can they go by one of the terminals? Is there equipment there that they can use to take advantage to study with?
There is. Every one of our terminal locations, we've set up computers there to where in the terminal managers and the driver coordinators there, they will help drivers get online and do the content if they need to. We still have a few that have flip phones, not many, but we still have a few.
Thankfully, that is again that prevalence of smartphones. It's increasing, not decreasing, but there are still some folks that's what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, and as we're talking about flip phones, I'm gonna kind of jump back just a little bit on our recruiting side. When you're using a platform like Jeremy's platform, if you've got a driver on the phone that's not tech savvy, while that recruiter's on the phone, that recruiter can get all that information and start entering it into that application right while they're on the phone, while things are going on.
One question came through from Nancy. I can actually answer that for you, Nancy. I know within the Infinity Workforce platform, the question was, can custom content be specific to a single group of drivers? I know within Infinity Workforce, because that's just what we use, yes, it is possible to drive training down to just a single group of users, can be defined by a location, can be defined by a job type. So
Mhm.
if you wanted people, hey, they operate this kind of truck in this location, I only want them to have that training, that would be something that you could do. It would just be a matter of filtering the right audience. But that is absolutely possible. I'm assuming that it's possible in other systems as well, but I just don't have the ability to speak to those. So, um,
That's a great thing about it is if we're in one location, and we've got a new customer, I don't send it out to all 21 locations if that one customer is only going to be for one terminal location. So I can drill it down to that particular terminal, that they're the only ones that will be getting the content.
excellent. Excellent. Now, you do incentivize retention. We've talked a little bit about the gift card. Someone had a question. How do you handle the gift card taxation? I don't know how large these gift cards are that potentially a driver could win. Have you had any pushback from your finance department on incorporating those as an incentive?
I've not. The gift card drawings, we do $100 gift card drawing per terminal location, um, but I've not had any pushback. Not yet. Hopefully,
Okay.
there's no tax person listening in.
Awesome. So, but you have other things as well in place for um, performance bonuses and things like that that you take advantage of and incentivize staying with your organization. And I know there, you'd mentioned to Mark and I about bonuses that you pay on inspections, clean inspections, level one
Mhm.
versus level two, and things like that. Would you go into that for us?
Well, we do a quarterly performance bonus for our company drivers, and so we pay this out on a quarterly basis. I don't call it a safety bonus. I changed it to a performance bonus because if they're not performing to operational standards, then operation can make some deductions. If they have safety issues, safety can have some deductions out of it. But we incentivize our drivers with the performance bonus with additional monies or bonuses just to do their job and do it correctly. Um, and last quarter, I think 89% of the fleet that was eligible got 100% of their bonus. So there was very few deductions taken out. And we do mileage bonus. We do inspection, clean inspection bonuses. So we do pay for clean inspections, and we do mileage bonuses at the 500,000 million mile mark, and every 500,000 increment after that. Now, on a yearly basis, we do recognize our drivers with safe driving miles per 100,000 miles. So we do give certificates out on a yearly basis for that as well.
Actually, let me go ahead and jump to that because driver recognition. I told you I was going to go to your Facebook page because you told me about this gentleman coming in here. Why don't you tell us about Derek? What's his
So,
story?
so Derek's been with us for quite some time. Derek came in just to get some paperwork, and while he was here, I always take the opportunity when a driver comes into corporate. I look to see where they're at, what they're doing, where their mileage is, and that's Derek had just gone over his 1 million mile mark. He was not expecting to leave out of here a little richer than he came in. So Bart Middleton, who's in the picture with Derek. Derek's on the right side as I'm looking at my screen. But Derek came in and Bart was there, our CEO, and I said, "Hey man, come here. I got something I need to give you." So we recognize them with the big publisher house checks, give them a little something to hang on their wall. So
Sure.
so yeah, Derek left $2,500 richer than he came in. So
That's awesome. That's
that's a big
awesome.
surprise too.
Now, you do driver recognition. You are very heavily invested in driver recognition, and I think this is something that um, you do a very good job keeping there's an in-house portion and kind of an external portion as well, recognition beyond just your group. So tell us about your driver of the quarter program, how that works.
So we do a driver of the quarter and then a driver of the year. Every terminal location, they submit on a quarterly basis a driver of the quarter for that particular terminal, and we have criteria that has to be met. And then, so we look at the submissions that they send in. As long as all the criteria is met, then we recognize a driver for every terminal for driver of the quarter. And then that driver of the quarter pool for that year becomes the pool that we pick a driver of the year out of. So we recognize a driver of the year, and we do a company driver of the year and an owner operator of the year when we do our recognition.
Okay. That's awesome. You got a question there, Mark? Okay.
I was just going to make, we talked yesterday about respect. We talked about it this morning. This is a very clear practice of showing respect to your driving staff, and it obviously works. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Now, we actually, we know that you participate very heavily with the Indiana Trucking Association, and you also work through them. Well, you're one of their safety board members, you had explained to me, but then you also, there's state recognition that your drivers can achieve, and you take advantage of this. And I want you to kind of walk through this for our folks on the phone, because I don't know if even those that may be part of state associations are really understanding that this is an additional way that your drivers can earn recognition and rewards above and beyond what they can get at the company level. That's another way just to increase that level of sticky to keep them with your organization. So if you would just, I guess, talk about, because you were sharing some with us before we went on the air about the driver of the year for the Indiana Trucking Association.
Yeah, I encourage anyone to get involved with their state trucking association. I'm very heavily involved with the Indiana Motor Truck Association, which Grammar has been involved with it for years and years. And I'm the chairman of the Safety Maintenance Council for the Indiana Motor Trucking Association for the state of Indiana. And so we're heavily involved, and I put drivers in every year for Driver of the Month. It's a program that they do. The Indiana Motor Truck Association has a Master Truck Driver Awards that if a driver has 10 years or 1 million miles of safe driving history, then we actually will put a driver in for that award as well. And they say that only about 2% of the population will ever meet that requirement to have a 10-year history or 1 million safe driving miles. And right outside of my office, I've got 65 of our drivers hanging on my wall that have 10 years or 1 million safe driving miles with Grammar. So in this particular year, I was emceeing our Safety Maintenance Council banquet, and I had 6 drivers there for Driver of the Month that were from Grammar, and my wife actually works for the Indiana Motor Truck Association as well. And so one of our drivers won the state of Indiana Driver of the Year, and I was as shocked as he was, because I was emceeing the banquet, and my wife worked there. She knew about it, but was sworn to secrecy, so she couldn't tell me. So I was just as shocked as she was, or I was as shocked as he was. So it was really a nice event. I started participating with the truck driving championships within our state, and started getting Grammar drivers involved in it about 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. And I had one to participate, and then I went out and got a couple more for the next year, and then they started talking. And this past year, I think I had 5. Well, it had been 2 years ago because we canceled 2020, but in 2019, I had 5 drivers competing, and they were excited, and I had more ready to go for 2020. So, when you give drivers recognition, it makes them proud. It makes them, excited to be where they're at.
And it's obviously your folks are talking too, when you were talking a moment ago about the bonus structure that you have in place, and the fact that 89% of your folks got 100% of the bonuses that they were eligible for. I mean, obviously they're talking about how awesome that is and how they want to keep that going. And I imagine if you probably pulled year over year, it'd probably be on the upward trend of folks wanting to make sure that they were participating. But this is just a great idea, guys. If you have not explored the recognition options available through your state trucking association, I know some of you may be very active, some of you may be a member, but not terribly active. Look into these things because there are other resources that you can leverage to help generate positive retention within your organization, because people do notice. I am sure that there are drivers within George's organization that knew immediately when their driver got driver of the year. So, and that has been communicated out and is now something that people look at to aspire to, because it's happened to one of their own.
Yeah,
So
and I would recommend the national associations as well. We're big in the ATA. We're big in the National Tank Truck Carriers Association, and our Indiana Motor Truck Association Driver of the Year. He is now a top 5 contestant for ATA's Driver of the Year. So
that's awesome.
he went on to national level, and he became a top 5. And with the National Tank Truck Carriers, we have a top 8 contestant for Tank Truck Driver of the Year as well.
That's
So
fantastic. That's fantastic. So look into those resources. I know some state organizations are more dynamic than others. I do understand that. I've been doing a lot of research into state trucking associations and motor carrier associations, but there are the national options available as well. So get involved. It could be a beneficial tool to take advantage of to help keep your folks involved. Now, one thing that you'd share with us is you make your drivers a little bit competitive sometimes amongst themselves, but in a positive way. It's not about who gets the load there the fastest. I know you just had used speed gauge and have a contest now around speed gauge, and I wanted you to kind of talk about that a little bit, because I think that's fun, but it's also driving the positive result of having people not speed, but also the drivers talk amongst themselves to egg each other on to do better.
yeah, we use speed gauge, and for those of you who are not familiar with speed gauge, it kind of runs in the backside of our OmniTrack unit. It's a GPS monitoring system, and basically it matches the truck up to highway speeds. For those of you who use GPS, that shows the speed limit on the road that you're on. And with today's nuclear verdicts, we have to um, have our drivers maintain control. We have to have them, because if a driver gets in a crash, everyone knows they're going to subpoena every record that they can get their hands on. So I've actually got our speed gauge set. It doesn't even start registering the driver speeding until he's 6 or more over the posted. So every week, all of the drivers, my shame and fame list goes out. The drivers are ranked from 1 to however many drivers, and we've gotten our speeding of 6 or more over the posted down to about 2.5% now. So across the board, the entire fleet. Some need a little more work than others, but it goes out down to a terminal level. That goes onto our Power BI. But every Sunday or every Monday morning, first thing, I send this report out to every driver in this fleet, and it lists them by name and what percentage of the time they are at 6 or more over the posted. So it's kind of become a contest between the drivers. They're looking to see where other drivers are at, and they're calling each other. So it's been a positive for the most part, and it's really reduced our overall speeding down to a bare minimum.
We've had on our previous boot camp, actually the last two, we had insurance speakers come in from Nationwide and Hudson Insurance, and both of those gentlemen talked about just the epidemic of speeding violations right now that came out of one of the negative effects of all that occurred with the coronavirus, COVID-19, and the changes to everyone's lives is this huge spike. And we actually had a client on last time as well that talked and spoke about what she's doing aggressively to bring their speeding down. So I think this is a great idea. Now, someone had a question in regards to speed gauge. Do you prefer speed gauge versus limiting the trucks themselves?
Well, we do have our trucks governed. All of our company trucks are governed down to 68 miles an hour. And so, but where I find most of our speeding is coming into smaller towns on back roads where the limits are lower.
Correct.
And I will tell you, since the drivers know we monitor this and we're holding them accountable, our overall speeding violations have gone down, substantially gone down. And we're based here in Indiana. And for those of you in the trucking industry, you know that the state of Indiana writes more warning tickets for speeding than any other state in the nation. So they are known for that. But it has made a big difference in the amount of violations that we've been receiving.
Excellent. Excellent. So we've talked about training as a retention tool, custom content, speaking to your people, sharing your message, sharing the things that they know, and the people that they know speaking and sharing that message, performance bonuses, those face-to-face touches. I know that fell off in 2020, the traveling to the terminals, but I'm sure that will be back on your radar once the vaccination, easy for me to say, situation stabilizes across the country. I'm sure you'll be back on the road again. Recognition of the drivers, making sure that you're proactively helping your drivers participate, both internally and externally to improve and be recognized, have them, a little bit competitive amongst each other. I mean, these are all different tactics that you're using to increase engagement. And that's huge, because engagement is what keeps people around. Engagement's what keeps people involved in your organization. The moment that people think that you don't care or you're not involved or you don't care if they're involved, they're gone. And they're looking for the next place they're going to land. And they do that very quickly. Mark, what's the statistic on drivers when they're getting ready to leave? Is it usually what, 72 hours
They make
after
up their mind. They make up their mind about the first week that this isn't going to work out. And again, the indicators are respect. Do I feel like this company is going to respect me as a professional driver? And if they get bad vibes, then the vibes are set in, and they're hard to turn over. So, the other thing I've got a whole page of notes here, George, and this is fantastic information. The summary, you've got a great combination of high tech and high touch. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I would say that is a very fair statement.
And you can overload the high tech and underload the high touch, or you can overload the high touch and undersell the high tech. So it's a balancing act. Is that right?
It is a balancing act, and I've tasked our folks to reach out when we hire a new driver. We need to stay in contact. Not only do we stay in contact with that driver for the entire time that they're here, but you really have got to stay in contact with that driver for at least the first 90 days. And the first week or two is really, really important. Because if we can get through 90 days and 6 months, then usually they're going to stay.
Awesome. Now, two things I definitely wanted to touch on here that I think are huge. One is access to your personal cell phone. You mentioned that every driver that you have can get a hold of you on your cell phone, and you'll contact them same day, but they have the ability to get a hold of your entire management team.
That's correct.
And the management team is same day contact back as well.
May not call them right away, but before the end of the day, I'm going to make a phone call back to that driver. If I'm in a meeting, of course I can't take the call, but we're accessible to that driver. For example, last night I had a driver call me at 10 o'clock at night because he didn't understand the sleeper split. I picked the phone up when I saw it. I walked him through it. Everything was good. So they have access to me 24/7.
Now, was that something that you put in place when you came on board with Grammar? Was that something you brought with you? Were they doing
No,
that?
no,
Okay.
that was already here.
Okay.
It was
That
already in
probably
place.
has that made adoption of these other things that you want to do a much easier, because it sounds like you've got an executive team that is bought in on what you're doing. They value it, they support it. And I know that there are people that are on the call with us today that struggle with that buy-in from their management team, from their executive team. I talk to them all the time. They want to do the things that you were doing, but they have difficulty convincing their organization that it's valuable. What would you tell those people? What would you say if you were there and could argue on their behalf? What would you try and tell their management team?
I would tell them it's very valuable for a driver to be able to get in contact with anybody within that organization. Now, back up to last night, we do have a safety on-call rotation so that I'm not getting the calls every single night, or, we've got somebody on call, but I'm not going to turn a call down if that driver calls me. You know, I do encourage the drivers, don't call me at 10 o'clock at night about payroll issues, because payroll is not there till 8 o'clock in the morning. But I would encourage any management team to have an open door policy and for drivers to be able to communicate. And sometimes the driver just wants to be heard. They just want to voice what's going on, and because drivers have nothing but time on their hands to ride along and think and fester, and a little problem turns into a big problem where they're concerned. So, and sometimes it just takes being able to get on the phone and talk to that driver.
All right, so we got all sorts of questions coming in right now on chat. I'm trying to write some of them down here so we can pick your brain. Now, I know there's going to be questions that some of you have that you were not going to be comfortable asking on the line. That is fine. George has graciously allowed us to share his email address with you. It's right on the screen right now. So if you have a question that you would like to ask George privately, you can. I'm going to go through some of the ones that have come up on the chat just now that we haven't already asked. All right here. George, do you have any experience using the Indeed platform for recruiting?
I personally don't have that much experience using it, but my recruiting manager does.
Okay. All right. So are your drivers home daily, weekly? What does their work day look like?
Kind of a combination of all. We have some that are home daily that slip seat day cab operations. We have some that are out and home every couple of days. And then we have those that choose to stay out for 2 weeks at a time. So it's just a big combination of all.
Okay. Now, I'm not meaning to box you in a corner here on a number on this question, but have you looked at your recruits that arrive from your advertising versus your recruits that arrive from referrals? Do you know what percentage that breaks out to roughly?
Not right off. I
Okay.
don't. I would have to pull that report.
Okay. That is fine. Do you ever get pushback on your e-application process? Are there folks that just insist that you send them a PDF or want to do it all by paper? And do you have a solution for that, or is that something you encounter?
Very seldom do I encounter that anymore. When it first came out, yeah, I encountered it quite a bit. But usually we try to come up with a solution. Hey, when you get home, do you have someone that's computer savvy? Do you have, can your spouse help you out? Can one of your kids help you out? And the older drivers that still have the flip phones, usually it's the grandkids that are helping them out to send it in.
Gotcha. That's funny because our client on speaker from the last session also talked about having to do more hand-holding, working with potentially other people in the household to make sure that someone was able to get through their quizzes and complete their training.
Sure.
Speaking of that, how big is your team that supports you from both the recruiting and the safety side?
So from a recruiting and safety side, I've got seven staff members, and that's recruiting and safety.
Recruiting and safety, okay. Awesome.
Hey, George, I've got a quick question that hadn't been brought up. And my first question is, I want to get an app. I think I want to go up there and drive for you. It sounds like a pretty good program you got going on there. I do run into a lot of drivers I told Amber that was on a previous session that the next time I get a car hauler looking for a job, I'm gonna tell her to get a hold of Amber. Next bulk hauler that I talk to, I'm gonna say you need to talk to George up there in Indianapolis. He's got the best program. So let me ask you about cameras, camera usage, what's going on in the camera world?
So we do have cameras in all of our company trucks. They are forward facing only. I've not put them at driver facing. And we also have cameras on both mirrors facing backwards, facing down the sides of our trucks. And I will tell you, the video technology that's out there has saved us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigations. When we were doing our test program, we had some incidents down in New Orleans, and for those of you who are not familiar with it, there's a big fraud going on down in the New Orleans area, and
Are you
we've
part
had.
of that?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry. That's
yeah. Actually, we were part of that with 3 different incidents,
wow.
and one of them was caught on our camera, and it went away immediately because it was caught. And you can actually, the camera company came down and did a 3-day promotional shoot with us. So I mean, if you look me up on YouTube, it's out on YouTube, and the incident that was caught on there. So I would recommend any company out there, and I tell all my owner operators, if you don't have a camera in your window, you should be putting one in there if you have to stop at the truck stop and get one.
Now you can't see this comment in chat, but Lindsay and I have actually talked about this a lot. This is what happened in New Orleans is almost as close to a trucking true crime story as you can get in terms of what people were doing to entrap drivers and stage accidents and stage victims. And they have not even named all the people that they have charged yet, but it's dozens and dozens and dozens of individuals. It's wild. If you all haven't looked at it, know that there are people out there that are unscrupulous and unethical and have absolutely put a target on your back in some locales. So
We had the 3 incidents that happened down there. One had a camera, the others 2 didn't. We had a couple of more bumps that had cameras on them. And when they realized that the Grammer trucks had cameras, we were not targets any longer because they knew we had cameras down both sides of the trucks and in the front.
excellent.
Do you share, let me ask this question, do you share some of the dash cam events on some of your custom content?
I do. And actually, when I do our safety meetings, I share a lot of what we see. I will put a compilation together and let the drivers know this is why we have these. And I share the good and the bad. 9 out of 10 times it's not our fault, but that one time that it is, that's when you tell your insurance company, okay, it's our fault. Here's the proof. Let's do what we have to.
Go settle this thing. Yeah.
Let's go settle this thing. Absolutely. Yeah. So I do share the good and the bad.
All right, a couple more questions for you, George. So we've got some groups that are just now getting into the technical side of the things that you were doing. So they're just now going to e-applications, candidate management, and so forth. From your experience, what would be like the first, let's say 1 to 2 first steps that you think that would be most valuable, impactful for somebody who's just getting started on this?
Well, when I first started on it, we had all paper files. All of our DQs were on paper. Our applications were on paper. I was a little nervous about it. Of course, I embraced technology. So when we first started, it was a learning process. So we worked with Driver Reach, who is our vendor, to really get the knowledge of how to use their system. And once we got that, we got comfortable with it, we knew where we could find things. That's when the paper files started going into boxes and being put into storage. And now we're 100% digital. All of our driver files are there. All of our applications coming in are there. So it's a learning curve. It took us probably 6 to 12 months to really get a good handle on it.
Excellent. All right, a couple others here for you. How vital would you rate your terminal visits as part of your process that you're doing right now? Because you're doing so much of this now online, remotely. I guess where do you, I know with hazmat, I mean, some of this training just has to happen face to face. I'm sure it's happening at a terminal level potentially all day, every day. But I guess where would you rate in terms of the things that you do, those terminal visits in terms of importance?
I would rate them up pretty important, very important. And it's not just me going to these terminals. I mean, when we go to a terminal, if I'm going there for a safety meeting, usually one of the senior VPs or the CEO is going with me. And a lot of times the senior VPs will show up, the operational VPs show up. It just, it makes the driver feel important that they're not just down in Georgia or Florida or Alabama, and they never see anyone from headquarters. So, we make it a point that we try to speak to every one of them while we're down there. Last visit I was in Georgia, I grilled out steaks for the entire terminal. So,
well, I'd show up for that, Mark.
yeah,
Get your
exactly.
application out.
So,
Medium
yeah,
rare.
so,
Yep.
I think it's very valuable.
Okay, excellent.
Touch. That's the
Excellent.
high touch. Yep.
I have a couple questions coming in where folks are talking about or asking questions about Driver Reach. On that application, that is something that Driver Reach has incorporated in their system. And George, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have some say in terms of what that application is asking for. You can customize that to
Yes.
your needs. So that is something that Driver Reach will help each individual group do. I would definitely recommend reaching out to Driver Reach directly, though. And I know that yesterday Jeremy shared a link to, they have a live demo that's available ongoing so that folks can log in when it's convenient for them to kind of walk through some of these features. And I believe that's driverreach.com/live demo altogether. All right,
Yes,
another
you
question
can
here.
add custom content. I mean, we actually put on ours, are you applying for a company position or an owner op? And then we also put on there, were you referred by anyone? So
Excellent.
those were things that the Driver Reach added to.
And if you have a different system other than Driver Reach, and obviously I think these are great questions to explore with those groups as well. If you're not taking advantage of that, I think you should. A form letter will always get less attention than something that's personalized out for your organization. Here's a training question. I'll go ahead and take this one. For smaller companies with between 5 to 10 drivers, how do you roll out safety training in a way that you can keep the trucks moving efficiently while also getting training completed? I would recommend starting small. Frequently and small. One of the things that we focus on when we do training material is to keep our videos between 3 to 8 minutes for a couple reasons. One, it's something that can be digested fairly quickly if, for example, someone's waiting in a terminal to unload or be loaded, or if someone's pumping gas at the gas station, they can watch a quick 3-minute video on night driving and get that knocked out, and then they've got it top of mind for when they get back on the road. Introducing any training is always a balancing act between making sure that the information is meaningful for your group, but that you also don't overwhelm them. So I know, like George, for example, in your orientation, how many pieces of training would you say are in your orientation right now?
We probably have 10 to 12 videos in orientation, and a
Okay.
lot of that is the basic kind of generic type of things that drivers have to have, where they can get it done online, hours of service type stuff. Now, we still review it. We do, tank truck rollover video that's required by FMCSA, so we get that. And we also, we do truckers against trafficking. So all of our drivers get that video while they're here as well.
Excellent. That's Truckers Against Trafficking, for those that aren't familiar with that. Actually, we had them on as a guest on our last webinar. That's a group that helps mobilize truckers and educate them on the signs that an individual may be in the process of being trafficked, so that you can mobilize these eyes and ears that the transportation industry has on our roads every day to help save individuals. And Truckers Against Trafficking is a group we partner with as well, and feature their training within our platform so that folks can access it very quickly and get that out. I like that you had the 10 to 12. That's probably about average in regards to an orientation size. The goal there, you don't want to overwhelm them with information. You do want to get them used, though, to that training style so that they can't come back later and go, well, I've never done that before. Well, yes, you did. You did it when you came on with the company. So I love that aspect of it. But start small and build up. See what the tolerance for your organization is. They may start coming to you with ideas of things that they want to learn about. So they'll want to know more. Safety training is habitual. The more frequently it happens, and we typically recommend at least monthly if you want to have a significant impact on your team, but it doesn't have to be an hour every month. It can be 10, 15 minutes in a month, and they can squeeze 10, 15 minutes in 30 days here, there, and everywhere. They're watching way more YouTube videos than that. Trust me. We've actually crunched the numbers on data usage for our training, and it's a very small percentage. But start small but consistent would be my recommendation for those working to roll out safety training. So, dun, 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 dun. Awesome, awesome, awesome. How much time do you spend on reporting, George, when you're pulling your reports together? It sounds like you do that at least once a week so that you
I
can
did,
train.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
No,
talk over you.
I was curious if you have kind of a system on how you pull reports, if there's, certain ones you pull weekly, certain ones you pull daily. I guess how much of your time do you spend doing that reporting? We got some questions from folks asking how long does it take to pull the necessary reports and bring a driver on board for orientation. I mean, when you're getting everything together with a new hire, um, do you usually have a kind of a window of time that you're shooting for?
So the new hire, again, you want to bring them on as quickly as possible, and within the first 48 hours, I like to try to get a commitment out of that driver while that recruiter has them on the phone. In our process, we interview the driver, the recruiter interviews the driver, and then we flip it over to one of our senior VPs or our terminal manager, and they do an interview with the driver as well. If everything goes well, then it comes back to us. And we're pulling the PSP, we're pulling the MVRs right then. We're doing the verifications of employment, and all of that is on our platform. So, I mean, they're immediately returning the process. About the only report that we don't get back immediately is a VOE, the verification of employment for a current employer if a driver asks us not to contact that driver. So.
Gotcha. 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 Awesome. All right. Now, another question it's a bit weighty. Um, when you have drivers that leave, because there are several groups out there advertising how much they are raising their rates, how much they're willing to pay. If you have a driver that is leaving because they think they can make more money elsewhere, how do you respond to that? Do you try to match that pay, or is it a situation that I mean, because I know your compensation structure is different. You're not paying by mile. So I guess how would you handle that if someone came to you and said, "Hey, George, I think I can go make some more money over here"?
We don't change our pay structure for that reason.
Okay,
And the drivers always seem to think that the grass is going to be greener in another location. And for instance, if you've got a company, I'm just throwing it out, paying 50 cents a mile or paying X number of percent per load, it sounds good, but if they're getting there and only getting 100 miles or 1,000 miles this week instead of 2,500 miles, they're really not going to maintain the same rate of pay. But we try to get ahead of that before that driver gets to the point of leaving, if that
gotcha.
makes sense.
Sure.
We have a driver, I'm, for lack of better words, driver advocate here. And one of his jobs is to call drivers. He's in touch with these drivers all the time. He was our recruiter and got promoted up, and he is the voice between drivers and management. If they don't feel comfortable calling management, they call him and talk to him. And he's a 1.5 miler here at Grammar, and so he knows about every load that there is out there. He still drives, but he's their voice.
So he's designated corporately as the advocate for the driver. Okay, that's
Yes.
good to know. So that might be something for those of you on the call to look into, having someone designated as that uh, voice for the driver on a consistent basis, so everyone out in the field knows who to go to if they have concerns that they're not willing to raise directly themselves or not comfortable raising directly themselves. Have someone that is. So someone's asking if we've given out the secret word of the day. We have not given out the secret word of the day yet, but it's coming. It's coming actually right now. We have already been engaging. Thank you guys so much for your questions. These have been great, and they've covered a lot of ground. And it makes me feel bad that Mark and I only prepared you about 50% of what they were going to throw at you today. So It's all good. It's all good. But thank you so much for your time today, George. This has been fantastic. Lots of takeaways. Lots of takeaways. I have notes too. I hope everyone on this call does as well about things that they can take and make their own. Just some different tactics, folks. We're not saying that everything that George is doing at Grammar is translatable piece by piece to your organization. That's not the point of the exercise. The goal is to give you some different ideas that you can take and try with your own organization with the hope that 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 of them stick, and then you can build on that program over time. So we will be making the replay of this day available. Should be up this afternoon on the same replay link that we shared earlier today. So make sure you check that out. If there's other folks on your team that you want to have watch this. If some of you have those management members that are dragging their feet on safety programs about they don't want to pay bonuses, they don't want to pay for participation, they don't want to pay for recognition because they don't believe anybody's doing that. Well, obviously George is living proof. People are doing that and it's working, and he's got great retention as a result of it. So if they need to find someone or you need to show them someone that's doing what they say can't be done, George has got it under control. All right, here. Now,
I'd just like to say one thing, George. I am overwhelmed at your ability to balance safety, recruiting, driver recognition, driver retention. It's a juggling act. It's as we talked earlier, you cracked the code, and I just wanted to point that out. It is a constant balancing act that you've done an exceptional job with.
Well, thank you.
and just to let everybody on the call know, George is not just sitting back coasting now. So George is always looking at new stuff too. So there, if you see something else come along that'll be helpful, I guarantee you, we talk in a year, something about this program will have expanded and changed. So he's all right here. Daily code word of the day is communication. It's huge. George knocks this out of the park. Communication is our code word of the day. Remember, you have to have all 4 of those code words to participate. If you did not join us yesterday for the previous code word, you're going to have to find a friend that has that. We don't typically go back and give the old code words out. But awesome. Awesome, awesome. You can mail those today to lindsay.presley@verticalag.com, the email address below, and Lindsay keeps track of those that are submitted, or you can submit them all on Friday if you so choose. Either works for us. Awesome. All right. Well, taking a look ahead, everyone, we have Women in Trucking with us tomorrow. We do have a new offer of the day that speaks to recruiting. BetterTruckDrivingJobs.com is a cloud-based recruiting system that is available to, get this out of my way, brings qualified truckers to you. It is a lightning fast, interactive website that attracts industry professionals. BetterTruckDrivingJobs.com is making 1 year of unlimited job postings available to everyone on this call today. And you can take advantage of that deal using the link at the bottom of the page there, BetterTruckDrivingJobs.com/engage-bootcamp. So we talked about that, testing your marketing message. This is a great way to do that. Testing your recruiting message. See which ones are working, which ones are getting clicks, which ones are not getting traffic. This is an ideal opportunity to take advantage of this, and at no cost to you for the next 12 months. Awesome. All right, gang. Well, George, thank you so much again. Mark, we'll see you again tomorrow with us. Actually, we'll probably see you again tomorrow too, George. You were here with us yesterday also, so obviously welcome to come back tomorrow. Ellen's got some great ideas that you can take and make your own, sir. So, but everyone else, want to thank you for joining us today, and we will see you back tomorrow for day 3 of the Virtual Engage Infinity Bootcamp on recruiting and retention. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Enjoy it, George.
Thank you.